Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Career Lounge Live, helping you to be a greater you. The lounge is designed to help middle and high school students prepare for life after high school. Failing to plan is planning to fail. So today's topic, making it to the pros, the competition is fierce. Go ahead and invite your friends to the Facebook group. And if they're already members, tag them. Catch us on the replay. Just go ahead and enter hashtag replay in the chat box, and we'll wait for the others to join us. Special thanks to the Career Lounge Live sponsor, EXL, a leading data analytics and digital operations and solutions company. Learn more about EXL at www.exlservice.com. Thanks to their sponsorship, we are able to bring this lounge to you at no cost. So again, thank you for joining, everyone. And so we're going to go ahead today and get started and let you know about Love Our Youth, which is a 501c3 nonprofit organization providing programs for youth throughout Central Florida. Our mission is to encourage the youth to embrace their self-worth and value life's lessons in order to maximize their potential. Today, we understand that decisions can be made by applying a process, and that learning this process is critical to all important decisions in life, including those about career choices. So today, we're going to discuss ways to get job experience, understand ways to find and apply for a job, and explore tips on creating a resume. Before we kick off today's topic, let's learn more about our facilitator. We have today with us Shabani Kapoor. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Hi. My name is Shabani Kapoor, and I've been with EXL for over 13 years in the HR team. So I work in HR, and I have been in different roles in HR, right from starting out with recruiting, getting into special HR projects, and now being an HR business partner for two of our larger verticals at EXL in the US.
Awesome. Thank you. And we would love to know, why did you choose your current career?
Oh, well, that's a hard question. So I think for me, it was really just, it was a process of elimination, to be quite honest. I started with going into economics in college. And so I was pretty sure that I wanted to go into a field where, I would be working with numbers. But along the way, I sort of realized that, I'm more of a people person. And, when I went into studying business management, I didn't do finance because I was like, that's not my thing. Didn't want to do marketing as much because typically with marketing, you start out with sales, and I didn't feel like I had the skill set for being a salesperson. So it was really a process of elimination where I kind of boiled down to, I might just do HR because that is really where I felt my personality fit best, just because I like to, help people, be very, open and communicative with people. So I just felt that that was a natural fit. And that's how I kind of got into being in HR and actually studying human resources as a subject in college.
Awesome. Awesome. So we're going to go ahead and actually get started today with our presentation. And so we mentioned earlier what some of the objectives were. So we'll just go ahead and recap that again here. So some of our lesson objectives today are: learn about ways to get job experience, understand ways to find and apply for a job, and explore tips on creating a resume. So to get work experience, You need to set yourself apart from the job search. It's going to be plenty of people who are going after this same opportunity. So it's always important to get the job that is related to your career choice. But if for some reason you can't, you can still use skills that you pick up with any job or work experience you learn and apply it to your career. We traditionally call those transferable skills. During the pandemic, we've heard a lot about those where people have jobs and careers that were not as prevalent during the pandemic and they needed to shift to find work. So they use some transferable skills to go into other areas. And so that's the same thing that we encourage you to do if for some reason you aren't able to get something related. Shabani just mentioned that she was really interested in HR. So there are parts of HR that you would find as a transferable skill, but it's not highly likely as a middle or high school student that you would get some key HR direct related jobs coming in directly. Did you want to touch base on that, Shabani?
No, I know. I mean, like in middle school and high school, you obviously don't know what to do, right? And I was in that situation as well. I really didn't know what I wanted to get into. It's as you grow and as you evolve and as you experience, you sort of get familiar with, what your strengths are, and then you work on that, right? So if I were to, if I hadn't taken up HR, it would definitely be, the next skill for me would be just, studying psychology and and working in that field to sort of connect and help people, because that's what I felt I was best suited for. So I did have the option of going into psychology as well, but I opted for HR. Psychology definitely would have been much more studying, but that's a transferable skill as well. So yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so some of the best ways to get experience, we have a few listed here. And so one of the first one is the entry level job. And we have on our example is, for instance, McDonald's. Right now for us is during the holiday season here in the US. So there are a lot of companies and a lot of locations that are hiring for seasonal help. So that's a good opportunity doing something like retail, any any really job that allows you to come in with a minimum set of skills and they're able to train you to do what they need you to do once you start the job is essentially what we mean here. Internships is another opportunity to gain work experience. This can include paid and unpaid internships. Some schools require internships. So it doesn't matter whether it's paid or not, it's the experience that you gain from the opportunity. Job shadowing is kind of similar to that. Sometimes people take those times that they have off from maybe school, like summer, and they may actually find someone that will allow them to shadow them. And of course, when they're doing that, there are different tasks that they may find some ways to assist while they're in the office and doing that job shadowing. Apprenticeship is another good way. All these are kind of similar in terms of the internship, job shadowing, and apprenticeship. One of my personal favorites is volunteering. I don't think people realize how much experience volunteering can actually provide to an individual. Typically, especially when you're talking about nonprofit organizations, a lot of the volunteers do not keep their commitments. And so if you sign up and you keep your commitment and you show up each time that you say that you will, you stand out from the crowd. And a lot of these individuals that are running these programs that require volunteers, they will actually jump in and let you know that they're happy that you're here, that they will provide access to things that they may not just normally provide to someone. So they may give you access to someone in their network. I personally have experienced that where even as an adult, there was a event that was happening and it was asking for volunteers to assist. It was a multi-day event And not everyone showed up at the times that they said they would show up. Well, there were two of us that actually kept our commitments throughout the entire time. And at the end of the event, that individual that was hosting the event came over to us and stated, you know what, I really appreciate the effort that you all gave. You were here for everything I needed you to be here for. If there's anyone in my network, and he invited us to be connections with him on LinkedIn, that you would like an introduction to, please let me know. So it definitely gave us some opportunities, and it was a very influential person that actually offered that to us. So definitely don't sleep on volunteering. I know a lot of times people don't think as high about it because it is not something that usually comes with a paycheck, but definitely know that individuals are watching you and they keep you in mind. So we
It's
also
kind
have,
of like investing in yourself, right? Like
yes.
whether it's paid or unpaid, that's secondary. I think if you really want to learn something and you want to get experience in something, it's investing in yourself. Using that time and effort to be in what you want to learn and experience.
And that's a really good point that you make, because I invest in myself and I go to conferences and things like that. And there was someone that is well known that mentioned that she was going to these large conferences as a speaker, and some of her primary influencers in her life were the people that she was speaking alongside. And she wanted to learn from them. And so she would go to these conferences and say, can I volunteer to be your admin during the time of this conference, where they might have one-on-one consultations? She's in there note taking for them. So it was free. She did not get paid for this, but what she would have paid them to have that same consultation of services and information, she would have paid so much more. And she was able to get that information for free because she volunteered, and she just kept doing it till she picked up on all the skills that she needed for marketing in her own business. So I definitely think you're totally right about investing in yourself, and it pays off. You can learn so much from volunteering, for sure. And then we also have working in your neighborhood or church, which, quite frankly, does still to some degree fall into that volunteering category. But this also are areas that you usually have a vested interest in. So definitely doing that. And this could include just taking part in what's going on. So sometimes some neighborhoods have cultural events, block parties, and different things like that. It could just be taking a role in one of those events. Same thing with your churches. There are different ministries and things like that that are in your houses of worship that you can participate in, that goes along with your skill sets and your interests. And of course, on those same lines, we have school and community activities and clubs. And this is a really great way for you to get exposure as well as experience in a lot of different areas. I personally, in college, was a member of an organization, and I just joined to have a little bit of exposure, go to a few conferences. I had no idea what level of experience I was going to gain from it. But I will tell you, in the midst of just being a member and doing the things that I enjoy and naturally gravitate towards, I was able to manage a multi-million dollar budget before it was all said and done. That's something not many college students can say that they can do or have done. And I was able to do that because I volunteered and eventually became a leader and just kept going up the ranks and saw the various opportunities that came with being a part of that organization. All right, so finding a job. I'm gonna say, for sake of argument, finding a job in this sense is anything that really requires an application process. So some of those that we mentioned on the last slide actually requires some level of selection or application process. So, other than just a job, that could apply for internship, apprenticeship, some of those other categories that we saw on the last slide. So here in this category, here are some different ways to go about finding a job. Networking is number one at the top of the list. Middle school and high school students probably don't think about networking as much. You probably assume that's something you want to do much later, but we all network all the time, every day. So anytime you're out and about, you're networking. So it's about being personable and having interest in what people are saying and having that conversation. And Shabani, I feel like this is something you could definitely contribute towards. So I definitely want to make sure that you can jump in on any of these as you see fit.
Yeah, no, you know what? Honestly, there is no right or wrong way. You know what I mean? I think you basically have to try a lot of things, and it could be a combination of, some of these options. It could be all of these options, right?
Yeah,
It just needs to be, you need to be just doing what you can to get a job.
right.
And I just wouldn't really narrow it down to that's all I'm going to do. All I'm going to do is like sit on my computer and apply to different jobs online, and that's it, because that may or may not work. Uh, but if you did all of these different things, it would definitely get you, something, get you a conversation.
Absolutely.
So I think it's really just a combination of all of these. While you might say that they are different ways, I wouldn't stick to one. I would just do all that I can to look for a job. Speak with family and neighbors and friends, network, look at social media, apply, put yourself out there in terms of like going on on job sites and on in job fairs, career services. I actually had somebody, and this was in the air in this whole era of technology. This was about 5 years ago, pre-COVID, when everybody was in the office. I suddenly had somebody come in, and he was like a young student, and he just came in and gave me his resume and said, "Hey, I'm just looking for a job. So if there's anything that I could do, please call me." And it was like an office building. So I think he was going to every office
Mm,
and putting his resume there. And I thought it was really good, because you wouldn't see that happen anymore. So that was
right.
definitely something new, that he tried. And it did get him a job. It did land him with something in our company. So
Oh,
all
that
I'm
is
trying to say
awesome.
is that all I'm trying to say is that there's no right or wrong way. I think there are many different ways, and you need to apply all those different ways to when you're looking for a job. Don't just stick with one.
Yeah, I love that you say that because even once you find the job, the key thing is you have to also realize what's for you, right? So some of these may come a little bit more natural than others. But to her point, having a combination of these may be very helpful. I'm not someone that always likes to get up and go out. So, but there are times that I get up and I go out and I can see the fruits of the labor, right? So you definitely want to make sure that you mix it up because you just never know what's going to fall just right. And even to the networking point, I will say that there are some individuals I like to call connectors. And they're not necessarily always networking for them individually, but they're listening, they're engaging and active in conversation and listening what the person has to offer. And as they're talking and they hear what you're saying, they say, well, you know what? I know someone that may be great for you to connect with, and they give you a name. So sometimes you can play that role if that's something that just fits who you are, but other times you may meet a connector and they can tell you exactly who you should go speak to, and they may have some really good options for you. I was working, this was many years ago, and my brother wanted to be a architect. And at the time, I was a cashier, and someone came in and on their card they had that they were a member of an architect trade organization. And I immediately asked the gentleman, would he be open to talking to my brother? And he said, absolutely, here's my information. And I gave it to my brother. I think that is what prompted him to not go and become an architect. And so sometimes that's what happens as well. Sometimes you learn a little bit more than what you thought was required. And you say, you know what, maybe that's not for me. And so networking can be very helpful. So definitely do that. Social media, you may or may not be on social media. If you're going to be on social media and you're not a huge fan of social media, I do recommend trying to focus on more of the professional based social media platforms like a LinkedIn. But on there are times where individuals will post that they're hiring for something in their company. There are other people, like I called before, connectors, that they see someone post something and they figure someone in their network could benefit from it. So they go ahead and they share that with their network and try to connect those people together. So it's definitely a way that you can find that. And then, of course, almost every company now has their own social media pages that they manage. Not only are they talking about their products, but they're also many times talking about they're looking to hire people. They're looking for great talent. So this is another way that you can find out about opportunities. Job banks. Job banks is such a wide range of what can fall in that category. So this is you actually going online sometimes. I don't even know all of what's popular right now because there's so many different ones. But coming up, things like Monster, Indeed is still something that I think a lot of people use. But you can also go to like your local area where they have job banks that you can physically go to, as well as those that are online. So you just want to find those. A lot of them are fit towards industry now, so you can find an industry-based one that you might enjoy. And then you can ask an employer directly. Shabani gave a really good example of that earlier as well, where that young man actually went directly to the employer and gave his resume. A lot of times they will let you know what they are accepting at the time, what this could look like in some cases, especially at entry level positions, is that you can walk in and they will tell you on this date and time, they're doing interviews for anyone that shows up that would like to interview for a position. So, of course, it's recommended if you can to go ahead and have your applications ready or resumes ready. But a lot of times they will do those interviews live on site. So, that is an option for you. Job fairs are really great opportunities. Sometimes they're standalone job fairs, and then other times they're part of other events that are happening or organizations or schools that are giving those job fairs. So it is a really good opportunity to see all in one place and put in those applications to numerous locations. And then, of course, you have school and career services. This is one of my personal favorites. I've actually used school and career services to get a few different jobs. And the reason why I really like this is if you're a student and you find a job through a career or a school service, a lot of times they are jobs that are geared knowing that you're a student. So they have that in mind, and the hours or some of the requirements for the job are meant to fit around you being a student. So in high school, for instance, I actually worked at another school. And so I think it was after lunch, I would leave and I would go work in a elementary school office, and I was their support. And I did that Monday through Friday. And when school was out, I stayed a little bit longer with like the office staff, but that was pretty much it. That's all I had to do. So it was perfect for me. I didn't have to figure out when I was going to do my schoolwork and my homework versus when I was working. So it really worked out for me. But I've also done that in college. We talked about internships earlier, I did co-ops in college. And so I went through our career services at the university that I attended, and they helped me find a couple of different co-ops actually to assist me. And it was great because I got school credit in that case, as well as I was able to take time off that would normally be during the school year to make that work for me and my experience levels. And then, of course, we also have family and neighbors. Don't forget about those. So what I would say was really important, kind of goes back to the networking, is let people know what you're interested in. Once they're aware what you're interested in, it helps them to be able to find other opportunities as they come across them and let you know that, hey, I found this opportunity or I heard about this. Um, my mother did it for me. I actually am a adjunct instructor at a university, and she was just so happened to be talking to one of the chairmen of that particular department, just chatting it up, and they had a need, and she was like, "My daughter is qualified to do that. Let me tell her." And it was just like that. They told me what was required for me to send in, and I got the job. So sometimes it's just that simple where somebody knows what you're interested in and they can kind of help facilitate on your behalf some things that come across their desk. I'm sorry. So, okay, applying for your first job. So, there are a few things that are requested when you are applying for a job. So, of course, we have contact information. This is your name, your email address, your home address. Of course, I would be remiss if I didn't say for your email address, please make sure that you're using something that is appropriate. So, it's very good to use a practice that maybe has like your first initial and your last name, something along those lines, so that people can identify you that way, not something that would be considered a nickname or something that's more of a leisure type email address. And then, of course, information about previous jobs. So this includes your business or employer name, address, telephone number, a way that they can contact that individual. And then, of course, what role did you serve? So the title for that. So it could be a volunteer role. It might not be quote unquote a job where you were employed, but if it is an employer, if it is a volunteer role, then the individual that was responsible for putting that together, coordinating the volunteers could be the person that you would name in this case and let them know what type of volunteer you were, what type of service that you provide while you were volunteering, if it was based on an event or not. Of course, with a job, you use the dates that you were employed. And then names, phone numbers, um, contact information essentially of any personal references that you might want to use. So this could be coworkers, old bosses, community members that you know well. So you want to put that information somewhere. I know we're in a digital age, so a lot of times we put information in our phones, so whether that's saving it as a connection on LinkedIn or just putting it in your address book on your phone, but find a way to make sure that you document this information. It may not seem important at the moment, but later you might find that it's important. I had an opportunity where a new job came about and my previous job had closed. And we're in an age right now that happens a lot. Unfortunately, people still are feeling the effects of COVID and things like that. So a lot of companies are closing. Well, because I knew how to contact my previous boss, I was able to find a way to get that new job to be able to reach out to that old boss so that they can actually give me a reference. So you want to make sure that you have a way to do that. So if you have work information, again, something like LinkedIn might be great because they're more likely to check that even if they leave that same position. So you want to be able to have a way, if they leave how you know them, that there's maybe a way that you can still connect with them. And then, of course, details about your education, including the schools and training programs that you were a part of, any degrees or certifications that you may have earned. And then, of course, the hours and days that you can work and when can you start. They're going to, of course, also ask difficult questions such as, do you have a criminal history? So you want to make sure that you answer honestly to any of the questions that they ask you on the application, and prepare a resume and cover letter as well. Something I will say about the cover letter, if you're not extremely experienced in something, or as we mentioned when we started out, that there are some jobs that you might have to take an entry level job, but it's not where you want to go in your career, but there may be transferable skills. That's something that you can actually address in the cover letter, as well as if for some reason there are gaps in your work history. So if you're a student and you're working and your concentration to work is the summer, that's where you can address, well, I'm a student and I focus on my studies during the school year. So these are things that you can address in that cover letter. And obviously, again, since we have Shivani here and HR is her thing, I definitely will welcome any tips that you would recommend about the application itself.
So, I mean, I think the application is a pretty standard form, right? They have very pointed questions that you sort of answer to, right? So there's nothing much that you can do in the application itself. But for sure, your cover letter and your resume is where you can kind of get creative in terms of making sure you are sort of displaying your strengths and playing to your strengths, right? So what you want to say on your resume and cover letter is going to be more important. The application, yes, is going to ask you a lot of repetitive questions that would probably be already on your resume. So you may have to obviously, you know, put that in. The application in itself is pretty standard. So I would say just focus on creating a good resume and cover letter to really represent your skills and strengths.
Awesome. Thank you. And then, of course, we have some tips on creating a good resume. So, number one, be truthful, state your skills and abilities accurately. I find that if there is a way that you can talk about the impact that you made in a role, this is something that you want to do on your resume. If there's a concise way you can do that. And so that's things like if there's a way that you were able to save time or money, anything that falls into those categories is really good to kind of notate and find a way to say that. So if you were able to do it by a certain percentage or a certain dollar amount, you want to state those things, if at all possible, on your resume. Be brief and limit your resume to one page, especially as you start out. As you later progress in your career, you may find that your resume needs to be a little bit longer, but initially you want to try to keep it to one page if you can. And then, of course, error free, proofread your resume, and then also ask someone else to spot check your resume as well. So, a good speller to review it. You can get someone that's better than just a good speller, that's even better. So, if you're a student and you can ask someone in your counselor's office to review it, your parents, just someone else that may be able to be another set of eyes and give you some feedback on your resume. Be professional, print your resume on a high quality paper using quality printer. So if you have that at home, great. If you don't, there are most certainly ways to do that. Sometimes you can utilize one of the local printing service like a Office Depot or somewhere like that that has self-service. A FedEx Kinko's a lot of times has self-service. If they don't necessarily have self-service, it's usually as simple as going online to their website and uploading what you're looking to print and let them know how many and what type of paper you would like it printed on. And they'll provide a time where you can go and pick it up. And sometimes you could just put it in queue and arrive on site and go ahead and have those items printed out for you once you're there and you can take a look at it. You want your resume to be readable. Use an easy to read font and a minimum boldface. Avoid italics and underlining, and leave white space. The white space is really good because you want things to kind of pop and they can clearly read what you have on your resume. And then, of course, you want to be a good match for anything that you're applying for. So use keywords that match words from the job posting or description. What this may mean is that you may need to look and customize based on what that job description is listed as and make some updates to your resume before you send it in each time. So, yes, we have a standard resume that is like our go-to, but you might have to tweak a couple of words on the resume so that it will actually match the terminology that they're using inside of that job description. Part of the reason for that is a lot of these are not scanned by people. They're scanned by systems and they're looking for some keywords to see if you're a good match. And so we talk a lot about AI nowadays, but that's to some degree what is happening. You actually have AI that is checking for matching of the terms that you're using to see if it's a good fit before someone that's a person will actually lay eyes on the information and look to see if they want to take you to the next step in the process. And so that is it for our presentation. Of course, we want to open up for any questions that anyone may have. So I'm going to give everyone a moment in case you do have some questions that you would like to enter. You can simply enter that in the chat.
So, I mean, while we wait for some of the questions to come in, just talking about my experience in getting an internship. Like I said, there's no one way. It is a combination of things that you do. And, I think in the whole process, the key is really not to get disheartened because you could actually go through many interviews or, many applications and not get a call back. And it can be a little bit of a demotivating process or discouraging process. But at the end of the day, what you really need to look at is the fact that you will get what you're looking for, right? Sometimes it's not a right match. And, later on you realize that when you actually do get something, it's something that that fits, right? And it's not just one-sided, right? You may get, opportunities to do a job which you probably don't really feel that's the right fit for you, and it's okay, right? So I think the essence of this is really to keep trying to get what you feel is a good fit for you, and it will come your way. And sometimes you do have to go through a couple of trial and errors, right? You may get into a role or a job, and it may not be a good fit for you eventually, but never discount the experience you're going to get because that's always going to push you forward. And without trying, you really don't know what you want, right? So I think the key is don't get disheartened. It is a long process, and be prepared for that process. But when it does happen, it eventually does work to your favor.
Awesome. Well, if you have time, there's a couple of questions that I do have for you. As we're talking about this, I think they're pretty good questions. So, one, how relevant is your work to your undergraduate major?
Oh, okay. So my undergrad, like I said, I did in economics, right? And so that is first where I thought I would be going into that career space. But, it didn't happen when I went into business school and I decided to go into human resources. But I do feel there's a lot of human behavior in economics itself that it teaches you. It teaches you about demand and supply and consumer behavior, etc. That is very, very applicable to, to the corporate world, and in turn understanding employees and some of the behaviors that that people have, or some of the reactions that people have, right? So I think even though it's not a direct correlation on what I did in undergrad, but it definitely did help me in understanding human behavior a bit better.
Awesome. I love that answer. And then just one more for you. Of course, anybody that wants to put in a question, they can do so. We aren't able to cover it live. We will come back and touch base with you to provide an answer. So the other question I have for you is, which has been more valuable in your career, your education or your experience? I feel like I might know the answer to this.
Um, I don't know. I don't think you can pinpoint really. I mean, the obvious answer would be my experience.
Mhm.
Just because, when you're experienced, you're actually doing it, right? You're doing work, you're going through things, you're being responsible for deliverables and projects that you're getting assigned. But I think education prepares you for that. You may not be doing it, but it prepares you. So I think in some ways, both of them really do give you that value to take forward in your career. So I wouldn't discount any one of them. The obvious one will always be like, oh, my experience, just because, you know, doing that and going through that, I feel progresses you and gives you a lot of exposure, etc. But I don't think I would have had that had I not been prepared because of my education.
Yeah. And I like the saying someone said, nothing is lost.
Yep.
So I know for me, in my background, I have a few degrees. And people ask me like, what made you shift to, is it's a pretty extreme difference with the type of fields that my degrees are in, but the reality is I use them both.
Yeah.
And because I have 3 degrees, 2 of them are related, but of the 2 extremes, I use them both. They are a part of me and how I think, how I go about and do things. And so I think that's important. And it goes back to what you mentioned earlier about being in economics and realizing some of those things about like behavior and other things like that that you're still applying today in a different industry, so to speak. So and I have a really good friend of mine who went into HR similar to you, but she was in finance. And because I know her and I've seen what she's done, I think it's made her a better person in HR because she's able to bring the facts and figures to everything that she does. And so people understand the impact. So when she says we need to do this, they know exactly why she's saying it and she's more likely to get it done. So I definitely believe nothing is lost. So if you do for some reason start out in an area that is not what you consider your favorite, or you realize this is not what I thought it was going to be, there is still something that you can pick up from that experience and that education or whatever it might be and bring to the future with you. So,
Absolutely. And I think that's what it is, right? The more you learn, and not in the field that eventually you are in, but just in other facets of life, um, the better you are able to understand a lot of other situations. You don't want to be a one-trick pony, right? So you want to basically go out and explore and continue to learn. And that's how you get a very different perspective, even in the field that you are in.
mhm.
So sometimes when I am in a situation where, I have to apply some of the knowledge I've gained through experiences and my education, it can come in the most unexpected way, the solution. Whereas if I had just stuck to, being on one side, I would just have a very tunnel vision of
Yeah.
what the solution can be.
Yeah, and I will say this. I'll speak for me. I was gonna say us, but I'm gonna speak for me. We're now in a day and age where the internet is playing a big part of people mapping out their future. Growing up, that wasn't necessarily the case for me. And so you had to do the work and go out your way to put yourself physically in place to be able to do these different things. Now people are able to do videos and get exposure that way. So it is definitely a different ball game as far as that's concerned. But it does also make me think about a lot of people that have created their own career paths because of it. Someone that I started following, there's a Netflix show, I think it's called The World's Most Amazing Vacation Rentals. And I enjoy watching that show. I love to travel. I'm a person that I felt like I needed help dreaming because I was so logical. So logical and so realistic about everything. And so watching that show was a push, a nudge for me to kind of start dreaming bigger because I'm like, it has to be this, and then you do this way. And so watching that allowed me to do it. And I fell in love with one of the characters. I like them all, but there's one especially, I just love her energy. And I started following her online, and she created her path. And there's a lot of these shows that we watch now is because they started doing what they love, and because of technology people watch them, and now they have their own show. There's another one on Disney that is very similar. I think his name is Jeff Johnson, and he travels. It's a different type of travel show, but he travels and he does things that kind of push him to his limit. And so because they were looking for something different, they're like, they tried the corporate America thing and it wasn't exactly what they were looking for. And they just kept doing things until they got that right formula for them. And someone noticed and said, you know what, we're gonna take a chance on you. So definitely consider those things as well. I know that's not a life for everyone. If you're like me and very logical, that's probably not your best.
I think the bottom line is really just, keep pursuing and persisting, right?
Yes,
Um,
absolutely.
I don't think, I think in everything there needs to be some sort of hard work associated with it. It cannot be, hey, I'm just going to wait and see what happens. That's not going to happen. You have to put yourself out there in whatever shape or form, whether it's the corporate world, whether you want to do something creative, whether you want to, be on social media, basically you have to put in the work to get noticed. Otherwise, it's not just going to fall in your lap.
Right, right. It's definitely work. Even if it feels easy because it's something you love and enjoy, but it is some work that still goes into it for sure.
It
So,
is work, it is consistency, right? Like you have to
yes.
consistently come up with content. You have to consistently come up with, you can't say, hey, one day I've done a video of some sort and then for like a month I'm not going to do anything. You're going to
Mhm.
fade away very quickly. So you have to be able to be present at all times and put in that work that's needed, whichever direction you want to go in. The point is that you have to be present.
Yes. I love this conversation. Thank you so much, Shabani, for joining us today. And our next Career Lounge Live will be December the 5th. So next week, invite someone else, invite a friend. And of course, we want to give special thanks to the Lounge Live sponsor, EXL, a leading data analytics and digital operations and solutions company. Learn more about EXL at www.exlservice.com. Thanks to their sponsorship, we are able to bring this lounge to you at no cost. And as I said, it will be here again next week on December the 5th. Thank you. You all take care.
Thank you.